I support President Trump's administration because President Trump has done the single most important thing that I believe anyone could do for this nation, which is to reset the table as it pertains to who has a right to be an American. And the answer to that question is people that were born in America legally. And that would exclude, of course, anchor babies, people that came here, founded this nation, their ancestors built this nation. If they are a migrant, they came here legally, and they're grateful to those people. They aren't here to be parasites or take advantage of our welfare and systems. And President Trump had said this many, many times, and he has the data to actually back it up. Here's President Trump setting the record straight at the White House.
But when they come from hell and they complain and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country.
Yes, correct.
Let them go back to where they came from and fix it. But when
if you come from a hellhole and then you come here to our nation and you make it a hellhole, we don't need that. We don't want you. American migration should only be, any immigrant should only ever come here to benefit the native populations of this land, which are you and me. We are Native Americans. Our ancestors built this place. This is where we're from. This is our home. We don't have an India or an Israel or a Russia or a Ukraine or a China to go home to. This is it for us. And so if you come here, be appreciative. But we've been treated like doormats by our politicians who allow ingracious, parasitic third worlders to trample our nation, to take advantage of our high trust society built for a moral and good and Christian people. That's a matter of fact. All of our laws and all of the precepts of our Bill of Rights are based on Christendom. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why we are thrilled that President Trump has taken a verse out of the Bible very seriously. In Deuteronomy, God tells his people, you better watch out who you let into your country. If you let in too many foreigners, then you will become the slaves. They will become your master. And so Donald Trump has reduced the number of people who are, of course, criminally crossing into this nation severely, and has also stopped granting asylum to people, effectively reducing the asylum rates down to absolute zero. This is something that has been wildly positive, including some of these charts that show a increased voluntary departure from America, effectively at a staggering rate of 28x. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump followed this up by saying, if you wish to get a green card, which means that you can legally remain in our country after your visa expires, then you need to go back to your home country and apply. And that caused a specific population, the Indian population of our nation, to lose their minds. And that is because India uses mass migration as warfare against our nation. And they manipulate and take advantage of H-1B and other visa programs to do that. Now, as we have covered many, many times before on this channel, if the best and brightest people in India or Somalia or Mexico or Cuba, wherever, the best and brightest people are there. They're geniuses, right? They're so smart. Why aren't they making their nations paradises on earth? Isn't that strange that that's not happening? Why? Why isn't it happening? Why do they have to come here? Well, half the people in India don't have running water or toilets. And so in what universe could you sit here and explain to us that mass migration from that place makes our country better? You can't explain that, because if you were to break off these countries, it's just like a very important rule of thumb. If you were to break off a nation and add it to a continental America, would anybody want to go visit? If you took all of India and everybody in India and attached them to the bottom of Texas, would everybody want to go visit that place? And the answer is no. Same thing with Somalia. Same thing with every other third world country. And so why would you the people are the culture. The people are the place. It's not magical rocks that suddenly become India wherever you bring them. The people are the culture. If you don't want that culture here, you need to stop mass importing, and that is what President Trump has done. In 1 year, we've seen a 25% decrease in total H-1B visas and a 90% decrease in H-1B applications. The Trump administration is slowly strangling to death this program that is a replacement migration program that has been totally and completely exposed and extorted, primarily by Indian populations, but by other populations around the world, in order to mass migrate people here, in order to send remittances back home. Billions and billions and billions of dollars taken out of our nation and funneled directly back into India. It can't happen. It can't happen. J.D. Vance slamming H-1B visas and fake asylum claims, saying the number of H-1B visas are down by 90% in the United States of America. That's something that we accomplish purely through administrative action. If you came on a fraudulent asylum claim, you are an illegal immigrant. Send them back and make them go home to apply for a green card. You can wait in line. Trump has cut legal migration more than illegal migration. Both of them need to be cut. Very, very important. As expected, President Trump has reduced legal entries since January, his administration. Half the cuts to migration. Put differently, the cut to legal entries was 2.5 times as large as the cuts to illegal entries, just based on the sheer numbers. Look at this. Biden versus Trump. Look at these migration numbers just collapse through the floor. This is President Trump has absolutely legal entries by asylum seekers in U.S. and Mexico. Look at this. Like hitting a brick wall. Just look at the Trump second era. Brick wall. Amazing. Trump has cut legal permanent immigrant visas. Census is showing that red states are having a baby boom. Meanwhile, populations are collapsing in blue states. And that everything is getting better when you cut illegal immigration. The cost of housing goes down. The cost of groceries go down. Less people on welfare. Less people getting free food, free homes. What do you think that's going to do for the cost of your home? Marco Rubio is in India right now, talking about this exact issue. Marco Rubio tells Indians U.S. migration policy will be pro-America. Oh, so wonderful to hear. Anytime you reform a system, there's going to be some disruptions. There's going to be some hiccups. There's going to be some inconvenience. We have a long term. We're going to have a system that is more stable and more viable. Ladies and gentlemen, Marco Rubio here saying everything that you need to do as a country needs to be in your national interest. That includes immigration policy. Indian journalists were shrieking and screaming about this because a huge tenet of India's economic growth vectoring is around India breaking our immigration laws. It says so right here on Friday. Top officials announced new rules that deny legalization of millions of residential migrants who broke U.S. laws. That rule, for example, would likely block legalization of many Indians who broke U.S. law to get jobs in India-operated hotels, restaurants, and franchises in our country. At the press conference, Indians were shrieking out about this. Since 1990, India's predatory migration strategy has proved extremely successful. India has ruthlessly worked with U.S. investors to enroll mixed-skilled Indians in all of these different visa programs. The combined effort has pushed many Indians into the heart of American industries and have pulled American jobs away from Americans, Wall Street investments back into India. So it legitimately is parasitic migration in order to feed off the host and take advantage of these loopholes. So let me make this very clear. Marco Rubio is shutting this down. Beautiful thing. Secretary Rubio, we are modernizing our immigration system. That is good for America. And everything you do has to include American interests. Wonderful to hear him say this so strongly and so forcefully. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Marco Rubio dropping the hammer in India. The State Department would have a huge role in all of this. And they're announcing these policies as Marco Rubio's traveling to India of critical importance. American jobs, American culture is on the line. Make sure that these countries that are taking advantage of these programs are shut down. Here's Rubio, ladies and gentlemen.
We've had a migratory crisis in the United States. This is not because of India, but broadly, we had over 20 million people illegally enter the United States over the last few years, and we've had to address that challenge. In addition to that challenge, and I think this is true for India, this is true for every country in the world, okay? Everything that you do as a country needs to be in your national interest, and that includes your immigration policy. The United States, I believe, is the most welcoming country in the world on immigration. Every single year, 1 million people, roughly, become permanent residents of the United States and contribute greatly. My parents entered the United States as permanent residents in 1956 from Cuba, and so it's a process that's enriched us. But it has to be a process that's adjusted in every era to the realities of the modern times in which you live.